And welcome to the show.
And there I got us unmuted.
Yeah.
It's a good song, so I was
Hello,
listening.
welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome everyone.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
Good song.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Oh.
So I ended up listening to it, so I didn't keep track of the time on OBS. Oh well. So, good evening everyone, or noon, or afternoon, or whatever, depending on where you are. I see for Null is at noon, so you're lagging behind, brother.
Well, Null is hosting us currently, which is indeed very kind of him. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
for hosting us.
That is very good of you. And we have Slots in the audience and Besot, I think.
Slots. Yeah, that's the only way I can think of to pronounce it.
Yeah, and we have White Healing over on YouTube. So welcome everyone.
Hey. This is classy. We are always classy.
Yeah, at least we try.
It's the classy show. It's a highbrow show.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's sort of a shame that Nullus isn't here right now, because then I could dedicate the song to him, as it was an excerpt from Hungarian Rhapsody.
Yes.
So yeah, that was by List, and a good one. I know parts of it from before, but as is so often with classical music, I know pieces of it, but I don't know where it comes from. So it's good to find that out.
It is always the way, really.
Yeah.
It gets like that particularly with classical music because it's not really played in situations where people state the names of the song.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, there is one song that I've loved since I was a kid, and I have no idea what the title is at all. I've never figured that out. So maybe I'll find out one day. Yeah.
Usually you just gotta hum it like fairly well to a classical music buff and they can usually sort you out.
Yeah.
With what it's called. I was trying to think if there were any classical pieces themed around dogs or cats. I mean, I think Prokofiev has one about wolves, but I couldn't really think of one that was possibly related for today. But yeah, that is what we are doing today. Dogs and cats. Kept it balanced, got 2 stories about dogs and 2 stories about cats.
Indeed we have.
And I actually recorded another story about dogs this week, which I'll mention the circumstances of, and it does interest in that one. Could put it out as well.
Yeah, I haven't had time to check it out, so it might be interesting to put up as a bonus.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, we got lots of stuff today. I think one of the things with cats and dogs in fairy tales is cats. Well, they're well known for being magical. But I hadn't heard of much of a prevalence of magical dogs. Aside from like the Grimm. Had you heard of much of a precedent for magical dogs? Things.
More in the sort of hellhound sort of dog. But
yeah, they get a bad rap.
Yeah, they do. But there is one story from Norway which is not featured today, and That one involves, if I remember correctly, it's at least one cat and I think 2 dogs. At least one cat and a dog that are talking and magical, but they are really humans who have been enchanted. So, but that's a story you have both. So that is sort of unusual, I think. But it seems like it's more of the non-domesticated animals who are more magical in many ways, with the exception of horses. We often see magical birds in particular. And,
quite a lot of those.
Yeah, and the normal forest animals, in particular foxes, are prevalent among those. And then there are quite a few stories about cats that seem to be magical.
Yeah. I found in particular one type of fairy dog. And that was one of the first things to sort of come up in searching for magical dogs in Scottish and Irish legend, called the Cooshie, I think, because I think you pronounce Sith as she, which means fairy dog. And weirdly, it was said to be dark green, or at least the Scottish said it was dark green. The Irish maintained that it was black, and had a very shaggy coat, and was about the size of a large calf. And the green's very traditional to attribute to anything from the fairy realm. I mean, I'm sure I've read a story on this channel before where the fairies were green. Its eyes were very large, they were fiery, and its tail was very long, and sometimes it was braided. And it had paws the size of a man's hand, and it's said that they roamed the wild moors in the Highlands. And if you saw it, you had to get to a place of safety by the 3rd time it howled, or be killed by the sheer terror. Not even if you saw it, actually. I think if you heard it. If you heard the last of the 3 howls, and were not in a place of safety, then you would die. Sheer terror.
Well,
so that was some interesting bit of thing. And then I thought as well that the ability to see ghosts and spirits was just associated with cats, but it's actually associated with dogs as well.
Yeah, that certainly seems to tie the theme of the supernatural dogs being hellhoundish, a portent of bad things to come.
Yeah. I think the only really nice story that I found about dogs was the Welsh people believe that corgis originated with the fairy folk, and they got given to the Welsh, or to a family, to 2 children, in return for helping the fairies. And they are apparently very good herding dogs, and they were kept by the fairies originally as steeds, but they got given to the Welsh to herd sheep and cattle, which is quite an interesting perspective on corgis.
Yeah, I would say so. Blood and Braces, sir, are over on YouTube, and he has an interesting story here. He says, my dog saved my life. I was in a bad state and he dragged me to safety from the North Sea of England. His name was Odin, I kid you not. Well,
Whoa.
hail Odin.
That is... Hail Odin, indeed.
Yeah.
It's weird because, well, it is mentioned in the Eddas that Odin certainly has somewhat of a connection to dogs. I mean, it's said that they won't bark at him when he comes along. I don't know if that's just because he's Odin and nothing would.
Well,
but yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good boy.
Yeah, I'm glad you had Odin by your side that day.
Dog Odin and possibly the actual Odin, because that's some luck.
Yeah,
For both
definitely.
of you.
Yeah. Which sort of reminds me of the opposite thing with people risking their lives to save animals from difficult situations, including, dragging bears out of rivers and everything. So,
yeah, that is true. I think that's it's a connection. Like, Europeans have long had like a deep connection with their companion animals.
Mm-hmm.
So
Every
I feel like
animal, it seems.
that happens.
Yeah, every animal, it seems. I did come across a video on Twitter sometime this year about a man who was pushing a lying deer on the ice, probably on a river or a lake or something, and he pushed him into shore, and the deer walked the last few feet on his own, and there's definitely some truth to Bambi on ice. Because he definitely wasn't getting a grip on that. So that was a really cute video. And, it got back onto shore and ran off into the woods. So that was a good one.
Slorts believes corgis come from fairies. Definitely. He's on board with that. Fornal doesn't think that basset hounds have any supernatural origins.
Are those the long ones?
Yeah, they got long ears, long faces,
long bodies.
Yeah, kind of longish.
Yeah,
I'd say.
There is one species of dog, that has very long body and very short legs, and
that's the dachshund, isn't it?
I'm bad at naming dog breeds, unfortunately, so I don't remember.
I think it would be dachshund or sausage dog.
Yeah, it might be.
They're colloquially called in England.
Yeah, I only remember that species by its nickname in Norway, which is oven pipe.
Oven pipe.
Yeah. You know those
That's
sort
a name
of,
for them.
Yeah, you know those sort of slim pipes that goes up from an oven to lead the smoke out.
Yeah.
That's the nickname in Norway.
They kind of look like those as well.
Yeah, they do.
I think the Americans call sausage dogs wiener dogs. I think.
Yeah, that sounds pretty American.
Wiener.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, we're gonna have to find out if this dog is a sausage dog.
Yeah, we do.
In Norwegian.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But
yeah, corgis are not just special because they are owned by the Queen. To be honest, I wouldn't have assumed them to have supernatural origins myself. But there you go.
Yeah.
Quite as derpy as they look.
No. This research definitely Offensive username. Norwegians eat doggies as
What?
sausage? No, we don't.
Nope. I'm I'm having to resist the temptation to make a really politically incorrect joke on this. Just something about another nationality that we know does. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I'm still going
try not to be
to.
spicy.
I'm still going to bid you a good evening, and welcome to the show.
Oh dear.
Okay, so are we ready for the first story of tonight?
Yes, I think we are. Let's have
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah, it's a sad one, so we're getting that out
It
of the
is.
way.
Getting out of the way. Get the
Mhm.
tissues. Gonna be sad.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the Welsh. Blame the Welsh. They made a sad story.
Yeah, but to make a connection to last show, the story takes place at the same place I referred
Oh,
to.
Slots.
So,
Slots has made a callback. The big birds were turned into fairies, and the fairies created the corgis. Yes.
yeah.
Yup.
We can make a mind map of where our shows take us with the connection in between them. That could be interesting.
It could be indeed.
And slightly mad, but yeah. Okay,
Well,
let's get the sad story out of the way.
Yeah. The Story of Gelert, a Welsh folktale, from Anglesey. It was somewhere about 1200. Prince Llewellyn had a castle at Aber, just abreast of us here. Indeed, parts of the towers remain to this day. His consort was the Princess Joan. She was King John's daughter. Her coffin remains with us to this day. Llewellyn was a great hunter of wolves and foxes, for the hills of Carnarvonshire were infested with wolves in those days, after the young lambs. Now, the prince had several hunting houses, sorts of farmhouses. One of them was at the place now called Beth Gelert, for the wolves were very thick there at this time. Now the prince used to travel from farmhouse to farmhouse with his family and friends, when going on these hunting parties. One season they went hunting from Aber, and stopped at the house where Beth Gelert is now. It's about 14 miles away. The prince had all his hounds with him, but his favourite was Gelert, a hound who had never let off a wolf for 6 years. The prince loved the dog like a child, and at the sound of his horn, Gelert was always the first to come bounding up. There was company at the house, and one day they went hunting, leaving his wife and the child in a big wooden cradle behind him at the farmhouse. The hunting party killed 3 or 4 wolves, and about 2 hours before the word passed for returning home, Llewellyn missed Gelert, and he asked his huntsman, "Where's Gelert? I don't see him." "Well, indeed, master, I've missed him this half an hour." And Llewellyn blew his horn, but no Gelert came at the sound. Indeed, Gelert had got on to a wolf's track, which led to the house. The prince sounded the return, and they went home, the prince lamenting Gelert. "He's sure to have been slain. He's sure to have been slain, since he did not answer the horn. Oh, my Gelert!" And they approached the house, and the prince went into the house, and saw Gelert lying by the overturned cradle, and blood all about the room. "What! Hast thou slain my child?" said the prince, and ran his sword through the dog. After that he lifted up the cradle to look for his child, and found the body of a big wolf underneath, that Gelert had slain, and his child was safe. Gelert had capsized the cradle in the scuffle. "Oh, Gelert! Oh, Gelert!" said the prince. "My favourite hound! Thou hast been slain by thy master's hand, and in death thou hast licked thy master's hand." He patted the dog, but it was too late, and poor Gelert died, licking his master's hand. The next day they made a coffin, and had a regular funeral, the same as if it were a human being. All the servants in deep mourning, and everybody. They made him a grave, and the village was called after the dog, Beth Gelert, Gelert's grave. And the prince planted a tree and put a gravestone of slate, though it was before the days of quarries, and they are to be seen to this day.
Okay, so I hope the tears are wiped. I will make a confession and proclaim my female prerogative that I haven't read that story. It's too sad for me.
I was gonna do it for the Welsh one, but I was feeling a bit emotional that week.
Yeah,
So I was like, I can't handle that.
I came across a synopsis, just a blurb about the story for that week when researching, and I'm just, no, I can't read that story ever at all. So,
Yep.
yeah.
A bit of good news, though. It might not have happened. It might not have happened because when you look at the origin of Beth Gelert, or it's actually spelt in Welsh Bed Gelert with two D's, and there's apparently it's widely recognised that the village name is older and originally from an early Celtic saint. So maybe no doggo ever had to die in order to name that village.
Well, hopefully not.
Which is pretty good. But yeah, they do have a grave of Gelert though, which is what the picture is for that story, and it's very much a local marker in the village. As there's a little plaque telling the story of Gelert. It's actually somewhere that you can walk to. They got a footpath to it. The walking advice says it will take you for a Steeldred sheep grazing in it, though, so be prepared for mud and other unpleasantness, they say. Actually, it's tangential, but I found a link, actually, between this location and the red and white dragon story that you told on the Welsh show last week. Actually links.
Yeah.
Dinas Emrys is also very much around here, or Ambrosius fortress with your story with Vortigern trying to build his castle there. And he couldn't because the two dragons fighting underneath. And Merlin tells him that the red dragon is eventually gonna win, even if the white dragon wins for now. And after Vortigern's downfall, that fort gets given to Enris Bledig, or Bledig, from whom it takes its name. So that is actually these two locations. Those stories take place in the same locations. Interestingly enough. Oh, and just to mention, there's some racist treasure in Dinas Emrys. Apparently, Merlin put some treasure there that only someone who's golden-haired and blue-eyed can find. A bell will ring to invite him or her into the cave. But apparently a young man went trying to look for it before, and someone was crossed. He was met with unearthly noises and thunder and lightning as soon as he started to dig.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Maybe I should try that
That was just a little tangential, but
yeah.
worth a mention.
Maybe I should try that if I ever get to Wales.
You could try if you hear a bell.
Yeah.
You can go in.
Yeah.
Of course, yes, in order to make up for the fact that you've earned that treasure through your privilege, you should probably give it to some POCs. Of course.
Yeah, well, I do have Nordic privilege, so
Responsible show here.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I get the question is if I heard a bell, would I be able to get out again?
I don't know. I think they'll let you out once you have the treasure.
Oh, okay.
I presume so. Unless Merlin's being a bit of a... Can't find a polite word.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't the most polite man at times, so...
He's a wizard. It's kind of their prerogative.
Yeah. But I do think the magicians he cussed out last week, that was definitely deserved. As they did want his blood to make the foundations.
Slots, that was a joke. Slots, that was sarcasm. It was most definitely sarcasm.
Yeah. Well, if I ever got that treasure, I would give part of it to needing causes, which shall be unnamed. Let's just put it that way.
All the mic equipment. But yeah, moving back to dogs and the famous dog graves. Actually, possibly Gellert is not the best known one in Britain. I'd say possibly a better known dog grave in Britain is that of Greyfriars Bobby, or at least that's very well known in Scotland. And he belonged to John Grey, who worked for the Edinburgh City Police as a night watchman. And when John Grey died, he was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard, the kirkyard surrounding Greyfriars Kirk. In case anybody's wondering, a kirk is just what the Scottish call a church. So yeah, lots of churches are kirk. That's in the old town of Edinburgh. And then Bobby became known locally for spending the rest of his life sitting and guarding his master's grave. And he was said to have done that for 14 years. He died in 1872. In 1867, actually, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, Sir William Chambers, who was also part of the Scottish Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, paid for Bobby's license and gave them a dog collar. So he was being taken care of as he could, despite the fact that he refused to leave that grave. Apparently, the causes of his death were actually cancer of the jaw, according to an examination. But I suppose we wouldn't leave the spot, you know. But 14 years is not flipping bad for a dog.
That's pretty based, actually.
Yeah, but he would not leave.
No, I have heard of that story, so it's definitely a good one. And just to mention
Yeah.
it, the Scottish kirk is very much related to the Norwegian kirke, which is the Norwegian word for church. It's spelled the same, but with an e at the end. So
Yeah. That's that sounds very much like it's interrelated. They've got both a grave and a monument for Greyfriars Bobby. And they've got a little grave for him within the graveyard. And they've also got a fountain outside. Well, it used to be a fountain, but there was a thing where it was a water fountain up top for humans and like a smaller one at the bottom for dogs. And then it has a statue of Greyfriars Bobby on top. But Edinburgh had a thing with its drinking fountains around the city. In like the 50s, they had to get shut off because of a public health scare. And so yeah, that statue's been through things. It got graffitied once, but Edinburgh really likes it, and they've restored it quite a few times. They actually have trouble with people touching the nose of that statue for luck. The nose gets really shiny and worn down because people will touch it allegedly for luck.
yeah.
Which is just it's super odd to me actually. People are like prone to doing little things like that, like touching a nose for luck, or some people leave dog toys next to Greyfriars Bobby's grave,
Yeah.
and like it's kind of like an instinct to leave offerings or to believe in spirits to some extent. It's quite weird.
Yeah, I did something similar, but for a very different reason. I was in Rome, and I was standing chatting with a friend in the museum.
Yeah.
And very absent-mindedly, while we were talking, we started patting the big toe of Constantine.
Big toe.
Yeah, it was
And now,
from.
do you think you've inadvertently started a thing? Like a
Well,
bunch of other tourists like thought you were supposed to do that, and now they're
yeah.
having conservation problems with Constantine's big toe.
Well, we did get told off by one of the guards there. We weren't supposed to touch it, but we didn't think of it.
Oh
It was
no.
from one of those huge statues that they only have in parts now. So one of the feet was part of it,
Yeah.
and we just absentmindedly started to patting his big toe.
Oh no. Oh. And and when museum attendants and National Trust attendants, or they get on you for touching something historical,
Mm-hmm.
some of them can be quite scary actually.
Yeah.
It's like, leave it alone! Leave the history alone!
Yeah, some of them can be a bit aggressive, you could say. At times I
A little
can
bit.
understand it, but just notifying people politely will bring you a long
Yeah.
way. At least at first, if they don't listen, then you can, come down hard on people. But
I feel like that's a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So we got another story about a dog
Mm-hmm.
next. It's more of a poem, isn't it, Lynx?
Yeah,
Sort of. Yeah.
it's a poem.
Mhm.
So it's a very short one, but quite funny and profound. So let's listen to The Dog and His Master's Dinner. Oh, hey Jewel, good to see you.
Hey.
Okay, let's have the story. The Dog and His Master's Dinner by La Fontaine. Our eyes are not made proof against the fair, nor hands against the touch of gold. Fidelity is sadly rare, and has been from the days of old. Well taught his appetite to check, and do full many a handy trick. A dog was strutting light and quick, his master's dinner on his neck. A temperate, self-denying dog was he, more than with such a load he liked to be. But still he was, while many such as we would not have scrupled to make free. Strange that dogs a virtue you may teach, which do your best to men you vainly preach. This dog of ours, thus richly fitted out, a mastiff met, who'd wish to meet, no doubt. To get it was less easy than he thought. The porter laid it down and fought. Meantime some other dogs arrive. Such dogs are always thick enough, and fearing neither kick nor cuff, upon the public thrive. Our hero, thus overmatched and pressed, the meat in danger manifest, is fain to share it with the rest, and looking very calm and wise, "No anger, gentlemen," he cries, "my morsel will myself suffice, the rest shall be your welcome prize." With this the first is charged to violate, he snaps a mouthful from his freight, then follow mastiff, cur and pup, till all is cleanly eaten up. Not sparingly the party feasted, and not a dog of all but tasted. In some such manner men abuse of towns and states the revenues. The sheriffs, aldermen and mayor come in for each a liberal share. Okay, so it might not be so easy when you take off with your master's dinner. You might not actually get to eat it by yourself.
Yeah, like it reads like he was gonna try and carry that dinner back home. But it seems like he got, like, some other dogs got in the way.
I sort of take it that he has taken off with his master's dinner, that he stole it. So I guess it's somewhat unclear.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
I mean, it says it's a wonder that you can teach this virtue to dogs and you can't teach it to men. So I took it that he was taking his master's dinner home, which is kind of weird. Yeah, I wouldn't think you could train a dog to do such, but then you can train dogs to do a lot of things.
Yeah, but they can
They
also
can be quite disciplined when they want to be.
Yeah, but they can also break the discipline for certain reasons. So, I read that more as he was, you can't train a dog to do stuff like that, but not necessarily. But, the view that he was taking the dinner home to his master is also interesting.
I'm just wondering, La Fontaine, did you find anything about who he was? Because he sounds like he's writing satirically here.
La Fontaine, he is one of the most famous French fabulists. That is, people who write fables. And he wrote and translated, I think, how much? I think it was 6 books or something over perhaps 15 years. And he also did plays and other stories. He was middle class. He lived back in the 1600s or 1700s. And he was initially trained as a lawyer, actually. But ended up writing stories instead. And he had quite a few contacts in higher society. So he was first of all able to make a living of it, and he was very irresponsible with his finances, but he always got out of trouble due to powerful friends or friends with a lot of money. But at a certain point, his wife and he didn't get along. They had one son, but they spent most of their life apart. And at a certain point, their estates were separated so that her inheritance and everything wouldn't be caught up in his debt. So, not the best provider, you could say. But somehow he always made it on top and never really worried about money. So I guess he didn't learn his lesson at the end of the day.
Yep. Just cruising around, writing stories, spending on it, spending everybody else's money like a Chad.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So yeah, I will admit I just read the Wikipedia article of him, but I have come across the name quite a few times now, so it was good to to look into that. For the French, I have actually written quite a few fairy tales in that time period, in the 16 and 1700s.
So that's sort of when they had their period of wanting to look at their folklore then a lot.
Yeah, this seems to be a pastime of the upper classes, including the women.
Who else has got time?
Yeah.
Who else has got time to go wandering around random French villages and walking up to old people and saying, "Excuse me, can you tell me a story, please?"
Yeah, and the upper class women spending their time writing their own stories. I did see a claim earlier about how part of the reason for that was that they saw too few female protagonists in the story, but I'm not sure if that is through modern feminist eyes or not. It could be. So I take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Like I don't know, that's the thing that they would have thought about. And also, like, to be honest, old European stories, like we found some quite old ones with female protagonists.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not sure that's not just like a bit of modern revision.
Yeah, definitely could. I know they have claimed some stories are gay stories as well, so they do rewrite history, so
everything is gay.
Yeah.
Two men look at each other funny. They're gay.
Two men are friends, they're gay.
Yep. People trying to say that about the Sherlock books as well.
Of course they are.
I've read them. I didn't see any gay.
Neither did I.
There was no gay.
I have read many of the stories and I've listened to more. That is some of what I do. When I have time these days, I listen to audiobooks. And I found Christopher Lee doing the Sherlock Holmes stories, which was very good. Oh, thank you. I agree. He just donated a diamond. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah, it's always lovely to see. I agree.
Definitely. One of our good friends over here. So where was I?
Christopher Lee writing Sherlock books.
Yeah. I definitely don't see any bromance going on there at all, or anything gay. But then I definitely have problems seeing Sherlock Holmes being sexual at all. He seems quite asexual.
He seems like totally, especially in the books, he seems like totally asexual.
Yeah.
Kind of autistic.
Yeah.
That's completely fair. He's a freaking genius. Like, what else has he got to be?
Yeah, definitely. Dual Citizen, Jeremy Brett played the best Holmes in my honest opinion. I'm not sure I've seen those.
Have to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have seen.
I grew up with BBC Sherlock, which, to be fair, I feel like they were low-key trying to put subtext in that was like gay.
Oh, you mean
but
that?
They never ended up doing it in the BBC version.
You mean with
big shocker.
That Benedict guy and
yes,
the Hobbit guy?
Benzodiazepine Cabbage Patch.
Yeah. Well, I do prefer the original stories, definitely, over the modernization. Though I didn't pay much attention to the subtext of that. It was only ever okay in my eyes. But then I rarely like modernization of stories, even if it's just a few decades. For example, Jason Bourne. The first one, who is Jason Bourne, I saw a miniseries from the 80s of that. And I had to watch the Matt Damon version several times before I could even think of that as Jason Bourne, because so much was changed, and I definitely prefer the original. So.
Now the chat might go into funny Benedict Cumberbatch names.
Yeah.
They're too fun to make up.
Yeah. That's some names.
Benzene Bumberbatch. Benzene Carbonate.
Something sort of invited. There is one English actress who named her daughters, gave their middle names from some food, and one of them is actually called Mustard as a middle name.
Oh, gods.
Mustard of
that
everything. You know,
mustard.
How you can even think of that is beyond me.
Yeah, it's a little selfish.
Yeah,
it's selfish. It's kind of like, it's not bad when you give your pet a really weird name, but they don't know. But when you give your child a really weird name, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
They're gonna grow up and know.
Yeah. I don't know if another one of our girls, or if there is someone else, or if I'm just making it up in my head. It might be the case, so don't quote me on this. But I do believe someone named their daughter Marmalade.
Marmalade?
Mm-hmm.
But like, Esrin, Rose and Lily are like pretty things. They're not mustard.
Yeah.
Mustard's just a spicy condiment.
Yeah.
I don't want to be named after a spicy condiment.
It's a spicy emulgation, to be technical about it. So, where they combine. Yeah, when they combined oil and water.
Oh.
It's a special technique in food preparation. You have that with béarnaise sauce and stuff like that. And mustard is also that. So, that's like naming your kid.
Yeah. Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
It's essentially like naming your kid mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is another emulsion of things and oil.
Yeah, which includes mustard. I've made it quite a few times, so that helps the emulgation along and adds flavor, of course. It's quite good making
Yeah.
your own, actually. I do like that.
Yeah. But like actually talking of names, like maybe drop the most the most like weird pet name you've ever heard in the comments. That might be fun if you've heard any weird ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
Oh,
people do really like the flower and
yeah.
the yeah.
Just a little side note to you for Noel mentioning that the longest living dog was 29 years old when he died. In some local newspapers in Norway that was online, there was a cat who came in the local newspaper when he turned 30. And that is quite unusual because the mean age a cat will reach is 15. But they had his vaccination card from 1979, and he was a stray originally, so they don't know how old he is, but it was at least 30 at the time. So
that is less of a cat, and I feel like at that point when it's reached 30 years old, just like Freya knocking around on Earth or something.
yeah, maybe it was her cat.
I had a boxer when I was a kid, named him Bollock Chops. We just called him Chops when we had company. Oh dear. Oh dear. Poor doggy.
Yeah.
Chops.
Yeah, that cat is definitely COVID proof. If he's still alive. It was a few years back, so. No.
Ouch. Yeah, Bollock Chops does sound ouch.
Yeah. And it's definitely a happy cat that lives for 30 years.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're sort of moving into the cat segment of the show now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
So we did 2 dog stories. We got to keep it balanced. So we got 2 cat ones.
Yeah, we decided to do one of each for both of us, to keep it even and not have any prejudice against any of the animals or anything.
Nope.
Yeah, full equality.
Cats,
This is a stream with full equality between dogs and cats.
Yes, egalitarian. We're not picking a side. Team cat, team dog. It's a controversial issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna treat them both equally.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have. Which one are we gonna do next?
That was.
We have.
King of the Cats was next.
Yes, this is a story from England, and I'll explain a bit about what sort of a cat this might have been afterwards.
Yeah. So let's hear about King of the Cats. It's an interesting one.
The King of the Cats, a tale from England. One winter's evening the sexton's wife was sitting by the fireside with her big black cat, old Tom, on the other side. Both half asleep and waiting for the master to come home. They waited and waited, but he still didn't come. Till at last he came rushing in, calling out, "Who's Tommy Tildrum?" in such a wild way that both his wife and his cat stared at him to know what was the matter. "Why, what's the matter?" said his wife. "And why do you want to know who Tommy Tildrum is?" "Oh, I've had such an adventure. I was digging away at old Mr. Fordyce's grave when I suppose I must have dropped asleep, and only woke up by hearing a cat's meow." "Meow," said old Tom, in answer. "Yes, just like that. So I looked over the edge of the grave, and what do you think I saw?" "Now how can I tell?" said the sexton's wife. "Why, 9 black cats, all like our friend Tom here, all with a white spot on their chests. And what do you think they were carrying? Why, a small coffin, covered with a black velvet pall, and on the pall was a small coronet all of gold. And at every third step they took they cried all together, 'Meow, meow,'" said old Tom again. "Yes, just like that," said the sexton. "And as they came nearer and nearer to me, I could see them more distinctly, because their eyes shone out with a sort of green light. Well, they all came towards me, 8 of them, carrying the coffin, and the biggest cat of all walking in front, for all the world like... But look at our Tom, how he's looking at me. You'd think he knew all what I was saying." Go on," said his wife. "Never mind old Tom. Well, as I was saying, they came towards me slowly and solemnly, and at every third step crying all together, 'Meow, meow.' Yes, just like that, till they came and stood right opposite Mr. Fordyce's grave, where I was, and when they all stood still and looked straight at me, I did feel queer, that I did. But look at old Tom. He's looking at me just like they did." Go on," said his wife. "Never mind old Tom. Where was I? Oh, yes. They all stood still, looking at me, when the one that wasn't carrying the coffin came forward and, staring straight at me, said to me, yes, I'll tell thee, said to me, with a squeaky voice, 'Tell Tom Tildrum that Tim Toldrum's dead.' And that's why I asked you if you knew who Tom Tildrum was. For how can I tell Tom Tildrum Tim Toldrum's dead if I don't know who Tom Tildrum is?" "Look at old Tom! Look at old Tom!" screamed his wife. And he might well look, for Tom was swelling, and Tom was staring, and at last Tom shrieked out, "What, old Tim dead? Then I'm the king of the cats!" and rushed up the chimney, and was never more seen.
Okay, so that is the king of the cats. And
Yes.
yeah, Katrina definitely came over and pulled my tail for that one. But as you said, it's
Yes,
for
I am a large floating green eye. I can be in Norway if I like.
Yeah.
Can be in any dimension I like. See?
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear.
But as you said, it's for a good
Oh.
cause, so I suppose I will try to live with it. I will make an effort to try to forgive you.
Indeed. I won't do it again. I promise. If I need any cat sound effects, I'll get them from elsewhere.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I'll try not to bother you if I need a poke in the eye sound effect.
Well, it would be justified revenge. Oh dear. Oh, and you missed that. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. The story will be out tomorrow, so be sure to I did put a link to YouTube in the D-Live chat for just in case of buffering.
Yeah. I think that it's just unpredictable. It's just unpredictable with the buffering.
Yeah, it is. That
That's the
is.
annoying thing about it.
Yeah, that's a sad part about the live. It's quite a bit of buffering, and it's sort of unpredictable if it's going to happen or not. So.
Oh no, don't put dust in my eye. That would be nice.
I'll do that if I need some tears or something.
Alright, just be warned. They might not be the usual colour you're used to.
Well, I do like colors, so. So yeah. But it's good to know who the king of the cats is, I have to say. I do wonder if he's been replaced by another Tom at this point.
Well, I think this story was quite a while ago, so maybe he has.
Yeah.
But certainly when it's relates to King of the Cats, I'm not sure it means all of them, because I think it is certainly talking about a very specific type of magical cat.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically called the cat she. Now, you know in the story that it talked about the white spot on their chest, and that is very characteristic of the cat she. They are a black cat with a white spot on their chest, and in most of the stories, they were feared by the people, to a certain extent, but they could bring good fortune. I couldn't really find any stories in which people had like significant interactions with the cat she, cursing them. Well, there's actually a story about a ritual with the cat she, but I'll get onto that. Well, it's a bit gruesome, so I will reference to the YouTuber who's done a full video on the cat she. But they could take the shape of the witch, apparently, with the ability to transform back into a cat. And it's said that witches with this ability were only able to transform from a human to a cat 8 times. And on the 9th time of changing into a cat, they would be unable to change back into a human ever again. Which is apparently where that whole 9 lives thing comes from.
Well, that is interesting.
Also, yeah, I did find it interesting. I found it very interesting, because they were associated with witches, and the other thing that they were definitely associated with was stealing souls. And you had to have all sorts of protections and extra things, precautions at your funeral for your loved one, so that the cat she didn't steal their soul. And so they'd do everything to make sure that the cat was kept.
I'm sorry, my computer is having a bit of problem now. I do think we have lost Katrina due to that. I was worried for a moment that my entire computer would freeze up, but I will try to restart my browser instead. Tech issues. I was actually worried that the whole stream went down, but apparently it didn't. But it seems that my browser has gone completely AWOL. Ah. I'm trying a different browser. I'm not trying to get her back on. I'm really sorry about this. It definitely seems like Brave has crashed thoroughly. So, um, so just let me get back in here. I'm really sorry about this, and you know, it's one of those when you just I can hear you now, but I don't think she can hear me. I'm retrying Brave. This is very typical. No, the problem is my computer, because my Brave has crashed completely and it won't get back up. And I can hear Katrina, but I can't get into the audio studio because I'm on a different browser. So this is, you know. I honestly don't know what to do. No, the stream can't hear you. But I can hear you. Yeah, but I have logged in with another browser, but I can't come into the studio because I'm on a different browser, so yeah. And Brave won't start at all. Do you seriously mean it won't start? Yeah, it does seems like I will have to restart my computer for this. Yeah. Yeah, I could just do the last cat story and then call it a day afterwards. You know, that is possible. Audience a bit of. Yes, lots agree. Yeah, so if the chat can let us know if they want me to reboot and continue or yeah. I will just do the last cat story and see if anything will happen in that time. Okay. Okay, Katrina, what do you mean by the show must go on? Do you mean just play the last story and call it a night, or a reboot? Honestly, I'm glad my computer didn't crash completely and that it was only the browser, though I'm a bit worried about that. You know, I have so many things on there that I definitely don't want to lose. So, and of course, it does have to happen in a stream. Yeah. Okay, I will just play the last story, and yeah. Okay, I'm just going to play the last story and maybe say a few words now and then afterwards or something, and then call it a night. So yeah, the last story for tonight is Puss in Boots. So that is sort of a funny one and a good one to end with. So let's hear about a booted cat. Puss in Boots. A certain miller had 3 sons, and when he died, the sole worldly goods which he bequeathed to them were his mill, his ass, and his cat. This little legacy was very quickly divided up, and you may be quite sure that neither notary nor attorney were called in to help, for they would speedily have grabbed it all for themselves. The eldest son took the mill, and the second son took the ass. Consequently, all that remained for the youngest son was the cat. and he was not a little disappointed at receiving such a miserable portion. "My brothers," said he, "will be able to get a decent living by joining forces, but for my part, as soon as I've eaten my cat and made a muff out of his skin, I am bound to die of hunger." These remarks were overheard by Puss, who pretended not to have been listening, and said very soberly and seriously, "There is not the least need for you to worry, master. All you have to do is to give me a pouch and get a pair of boots made for me, so that I can walk in the woods. You will find then that your share is not so bad after all." Now this cat had often shown himself capable of performing cunning tricks. When catching rats and mice, for example, he would hide himself among the meal and hang downward by the feet as though he were dead. His master, therefore, though he did not build too much on what the cat had said, felt some hope of being assisted in his miserable plight. On receiving the boots which he had asked for, Puss gaily pulled them on. Then he hung the pouch around his neck, and holding the cords which tied them in front of him with his paws, he sallied forth to a warren where rabbits abounded. Placing some bran and lettuce in the pouch, he stretched himself out and lay as if dead. His plan was to wait until some young rabbit, unlearned in worldly wisdom, should come and rummage in the pouch for the eatables which he had placed there. Hardly had he laid himself down when things fell out as he wished. A stupid young rabbit went into the pouch, and Master Puss, pulling the cords tight, killed him on the instant. Well satisfied with his capture, Puss departed to the king's palace. There he demanded an audience and was ushered upstairs. He entered the royal apartment and bowed profoundly to the king. "I bring you, sire," said he, "a rabbit from the warren of the Marquis of Carabas. Such was the title he invented for his master, which I am bidden to present to you on his behalf." "Tell your master," replied the king, "that I thank him, and am pleased by his attention." Another time the cat hid himself in a wheat field, keeping the mouth of his bag wide open. 2 partridges ventured in, and by pulling the cords tight he captured both of them. Off he went and presented them to the king, just as he had done with the rabbit from the warren. His Majesty was not less gratified by the brace of partridges, and handed the cat a present for himself. For 2 or 3 months Puss went on in this way, every now and again talking to the king as a present from his master some game which he had caught. There came a day when he learned that the king intended to take his daughter, who was the most beautiful princess in the whole world, for an excursion along the river bank. "If you do as I tell you," said Puss to his master, "your fortune is made. You only have to go and bathe in the river at the spot which I shall point out to you. Leave the rest to me." The Marquis of Carabas had no idea what plan was afoot, but did as the cat had directed. While he was bathing, the king drew near, and Puss at once began to cry out at the top of his voice, "Help! Help! The Marquis of Carabas is drowning!" At his shouts, the king put his head out of the carriage window. He recognized the cat who had so often brought in game, and bade his escort go speedily to the help of the Marquis of Carabas. While they were pulling the poor Marquis out of the river, Puss approached the carriage and explained to the king that while his master was bathing, robbers had come and taken his clothes, though he had cried, "Stop! Thief!" at the top of his voice. As a matter of fact, the rascal had hidden them under a big stone. The king at once commanded the keeper of his wardrobe to go and select a suit of his finest clothes for the Marquis of Carabas. The king received the Marquis with many compliments, and as the fine clothes which the latter had just put on set off his good looks, for he was handsome and comely in appearance, the king's daughter found him very much to her liking. Indeed, the Marquis of Carabas had not bestowed more than 2 or 3 respectable but sentimental glances upon her when she fell madly in love with him. The king invited him to enter the coach and join the party. Delighted to see his plan so successfully launched, the cat went on ahead and presently came upon some peasants who were mowing a field. "Listen, my good fellows," said he. "If you do not tell the king that the fields which you are mowing belongs to the Marquis of Carabas, you will be all chopped up into little pieces of mincemeat." In due course the king asked the mowers to whom the fields on which they were at work belonged. "It is the property of the Marquis of Carabas," they all cried with one voice, for the threat from Puss had frightened them. "You have inherited a fine estate," the king remarked to Carabas. "As you see for yourself, sire," replied the Marquis, "this is a meadow which never fails to yield an abundant crop each year." Still travelling ahead, the cat came upon some harvesters. "Listen, my good fellows," said he, "if you do not declare that every one of these fields belong to the Marquis of Carabas, you will all be chopped up into little bits like mincemeat." The king came by a moment later and wished to know who the owner of the fields in sight. "It is the Marquis of Carabas," cried the harvesters. At this, the king was more pleased than ever with the Marquis. Preceding the coach on its journey, the cat made the same threat to all whom he met, and the king grew astonished at the great wealth of the Marquis of Carabas. Finally, Master Puss reached a splendid castle, which belonged to an ogre. He was the richest ogre that had ever been known, for all the lands through which the king had passed were part of the castle domain. The cat had taken care to find out who this ogre was and what powers he possessed. He now asked for an interview, declaring that he was unwilling to pass so close to the castle without having the honor of paying his respects to the owner. The ogre received him as civilly as an ogre can, and bade him sit down. "I have been told," said Puss, "that you have the power to change yourself into any kind of animal. For example, you can transform yourself into a lion or an elephant." "That is perfectly true," said the ogre curtly, "and just to prove it, you shall see me turn into a lion." Puss was so frightened on seeing a lion before him that he sprang onto the roof, not without difficulty and danger, for his boots were not made for walking on the tiles. Perceiving presently that the ogre had abandoned his transformation, Puss descended and owned to having been thoroughly frightened. "I have also been told," he added, "but I can scarcely believe it, that you have the further power to take the shape of the smallest animals. For example, that you can change yourself into a rat or a mouse. I confess that to me it seems quite impossible." "Impossible?" cried the ogre. "You shall see." And in the same moment he changed himself into a mouse, which began to run about the floor. No sooner did Puss see it than he pounced on it and ate it. Presently the king came along, and noticing the ogre's beautiful mansion, decided to visit it. The cat heard the rumble of the coach as he crossed the castle drawbridge, and running out to the courtyard, cried to the king, "Welcome, your majesty, to the castle of the Marquis of Carabas." "What's that?" cried the king. "Is this castle also yours, Marquis? Nothing would be finer than this courtyard and the buildings which I see all about. With your permission, we will go inside and look around." The Marquis gave his hand to the young princess and followed the king as he led the way up the staircase. Entering a great hall, they found there a magnificent collation. This had been prepared by the ogre for some friends who were to pay him a visit that very day. The latter had not dared to enter when they learned that the king was there. The king was now quite as charmed with the excellent qualities of the Marquis of Carabas as his daughter. The latter was completely captivated by him. Noting the great wealth of which the Marquis evidently possessed, and having quaffed several cups of wine, he turned to his host, saying, "It rests with you, Marquis, whether you will be my son-in-law." The Marquis, bowing very low, accepted the honor which the king bestowed upon him. The very same day he married the princess. Puss became a personage of great importance and gave up hunting mice, except for amusement. And then it was the unmuting of the microphone again. So, yeah. Seems like that fell in people's taste, which is good, of course. I have to admit that right now I'm considering making a pouch and a pair of boots for my cat. And perhaps she can show me some riches or something. That would be nice. So yeah, it's a fun story. This version is written a bit more funny as well, so I definitely like that part about it. It did say that it's a Brothers Grimm story, but as is evident with the names and the titles, and yeah, it's a French story, Marquis, that's the French title, and Carabin, that is definitely French as well. So yeah, unfortunately that seems to be it for tonight. My Brave browser won't start, so at the moment it's not so brave as it has been so far. So yeah, that's pretty sad. And as for the chest feeding, the fanatics has definitely pulled that on themselves. It is the only proper chest feeding about, is putting lemons into the D-Live chest, and it's definitely the appropriate term for that. And there goes the chest. It will be fun to see who the big winners of tonight are. Just a few more seconds now. Oh, I agree. Are you still on to poor Benedict? Okay, we have the winners for tonight. Number 1 is Slots with 179 lemons, and second is For Null with 103. I agree with 75. Then I am on the list as well, actually, with 59, and Blue Levy with 50. So congratulations, everyone. Oh, seems like it's coming in some more now. That usually happens after the test, and thank you so much for your contributions. It's very much appreciated. Jax with the lemon, Blue Levy with 2 lemons, Slots with the diamond, and I agree with 5 ice creams. Thank you very much. So yeah, that seems to be it for tonight. So I hope you have a good Sunday, and the remainder of the weekend. It's not that much longer here in Europe, but you over in the States, you have a bit more, so make sure to enjoy that one. The stories will be up as separate videos tomorrow. Most of that work is done, so that will be good. And yeah, I will admit I'm a bit my mind is a bit all over the place because of the tech issues, but these things happen. And for you guys over on YouTube, I'm not ignoring you. I don't have that tab open right now due to my browser difficulties, so yeah, I hope you all have a good night, and that's it. So hope to see you next week when we will take a look at the carnival. A bit belated, but better late than never. So yeah, that should bring some interesting stories. And hope to see you next week, next Sunday, same time, same place. And have a good night.